All right, welcome in. Merry Christmas Eve. I guess it's not the eve yet. For some of you over in Europe, it is. So Merry Christmas Eve to those of you. Everybody in North America, you still have a few hours before that happens. We got a 49ers update for you. I was at the hockey game last night. I actually have a cool little video to share in a little bit. But first, we're going to get through the injury update. 49ers are going to be playing the remainder of this season severely shorthanded along the offensive line. They finished the game against Miami severely shorthanded along the offensive line. But Trent Williams now officially done for the season. This is something that is not surprising. This is obviously something that we expected. Kyle Shanahan confirmed it yesterday. On top of that, Aaron Banks, who hurt his MCL, and Jalen Moore, who hurt his quad against the Miami Dolphins, are also both going to be out for the final 2 games of this season. Additionally, the 49ers yesterday were still waiting for an MRI to return on Spencer Burford's calf. And there's a chance that Spencer Burford is also done for the final 2 games, although there is still some optimism that he will be able to play over the final 2 games. Remember that Spencer Burford actually was the tackle replacement for Jalen Moore, who was the backup for Trent Williams. So the 49ers were on their 3rd string offensive tackle or left tackle against Miami. I'm going to zoom in on the offensive line here just so you could visualize a little bit of the issue that the 49ers face. Williams hurt, Banks hurt, Moore hurt, Burford hurt. So we're going to take all 4 of these guys right here, and we're going to add the shading to denote an injury. I know that I turned that off because I was already focused on next season, but this gives you an idea of everybody who is injured along the 49ers offensive line. And all 4 of these guys are currently on the 53-man roster. So you've got nearly half the active room wiped out at this point. So what do the 49ers do? Well, A, they're going to hope that Burford is good to go. So I'm going to return him to green shading just for the time being. That means that he's under contract for next season, by the way. I've changed the shades from injuries to who's under contract, who's an exclusive right free agent, who's a restricted free agent. But for now, we're going to subdivide this and just visualize the injuries. They're going to hope that Burford is ready to go on Monday night against the Lions. That way that he can take over Trent Williams' spot or Jalen Moore's spot at left tackle, and your bookending tackles are Burford and Colton McKivitz. If Burford cannot go, the 49ers recently signed Austin Pleasance and promoted him to the 53-man roster, journeyman lineman who's been in the league since 2020. So Austin Pleasance would get the start at left tackle. That also would mean that they would have to probably poach a lineman off another team's practice squad to be the emergency swing tackle for the game. Because as you can see, and I got to erase Austin Pleasance from here. He's no longer the practice squad. Isaac Alarcon is their international exception player. He was college teammates with Alfredo Gutierrez back in Mexico, but I don't think that Alarcon would be the most realistic option to get game action for the 49ers. So they probably would have to sign another tackle, which Kyle Shanahan alluded to yesterday. Big picture here is that Brock Purdy is going to have to scrap and claw his way behind an offensive line that is severely limited at this point. It's obviously not just the injuries for the 49ers. It's the fact that center and left guard, even before injuries were a concern this season, regressed severely for the 49ers. They improved the right side with Dominic Purdy and Colton McKivitz getting better. Purdy has been an excellent player for San Francisco, but the left side and the center in particular has gotten worse. There's another graphic that SF Data Niners put out today. These are SF offensive penalties, since penalties are the flavor of the week following what happened to the 49ers in Miami. Jake Brendel has accounted for 4 offensive holding penalties. That's twice as much as anybody else on this 49ers team. So Brendel at center has just had a tough season. I think the regression there has been significant. We saw all kinds of pressure from Miami in this game that led to this. Brock Purdy running for his life. And the pressure was generated by stunts from defensive tackles up front. And there are several opportunities on film to see Jake Brendel struggling to pick up the stunt. And when you talk about deception and exotic pressure packages from opposing defenses, it's the center that's got to be able to identify and set the protection for the 49ers. And Jake Brendel obviously did not do a good job of that in the loss to Miami. So there's a lot to rebuild for the 49ers up front, a lot to retool, but they're going to have to get to the finish line here behind a front that is operating at definitely way less than, I think, even 70% because of the injuries. Aaron Banks will be replaced by Nick Zakelj. Burford is going to slot into tackle if he is able to do so. But then you're still dealing with Brendel in a very, very down year. Dominic Pooney's your best lineman at the right guard position, and Colton McKivitz at right tackle, who, he gets a lot of flack, but the biggest 49ers issues have been on the interior at center and left guard. McKivitz, he's a player who will let up pressure, but it's pressure that Brock Purdy, I think, can successfully deal with, assuming the rest of the line does a competent job. If it's coming off of that right tackle spot, then Brock Purdy can step up. It's in his line of vision. But if he's got A-gap pressure, especially on top of pressure from the right side that makes him step up, you saw it on the interception play. McKivitz got slightly beat, so Purdy had to step right into Calais Campbell, who just wasn't blocked at all. Jake Brendel just didn't identify that stunt at all, and it ended up being a massive hit and a pick for the 49ers. So Purdy is going to have to scrap and claw his way through these final two games. And the 49ers have already seen enough from Brock Purdy to know that this is their quarterback of the future. It's about investing in the offensive line that's going to set their quarterback of the future up for maximal success. So even if it's a grind for Brock Purdy over the next two games, I think it's an understandable grind. But the 49ers need to go out there and compete. It's a cultural thing at this point, right? You have been afflicted with a ton of adversity over the course of this season, but you need to fight to the finish line. And if you're healthy enough to play, you play. That's how the 49ers are looking at this over the course of the final two games. They've determined that Trent Williams is no longer going to be able to get healthy enough to play. So that's why they have ruled him out for the season. But other guys, they're going to be in there for the 49ers. Anyway, on to the next news. Dre Greenlaw, most likely done for the season. Greenlaw is dealing with calf soreness that Kyle Shanahan says his gut feeling is that they're just going to shut Dre Greenlaw down. He played for 4 plays against the Miami Dolphins when he reported that calf soreness. Remember that Dre was staggering coming off the field the week prior against the Rams. So when we look at the return from injury timetable for Dre Greenlaw, he came back very quickly from the torn Achilles. He showed full explosiveness against the Rams, but it looked like being in a football game is like going through a series of car accidents. I mean, you are getting hit, you're dealing out contact, you're going to be sore, especially if you have not been on the field for a long time. It's going to be a journey to get back. And I think that's where they're at with Dre Greenlaw right now. He is really, really hurting after being out of the game for so long. I think the 49ers are happy that he showed that explosiveness. I think that was a massive win against the Rams. But I do think that they have to play this cautiously because you can't throw his body full bore back into the mix of NFL football 100% without an incremental buildup. And what he did against the Rams, I think, calmed a lot of minds. Dre Greenlaw is going to be Dre Greenlaw. He's going to have that explosion back. But now he's got to build up that callus. He's got to build up the ability to go out there and not be as sore as he's been. And that's the next step in the injury recovery process. There is a fine line the 49ers are walking because he's a pending free agent this offseason. So Dre himself feels that he needs to show the league that he is back and that he can handle a full snap load. But sometimes that just isn't realistically, that sometimes it just isn't realistic. Sometimes the incremental buildup needs more time. And remember, it had only been 305 days since he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl when he came back against the Rams and actually looked damn good. So Shanahan's gut feeling is they're going to shut Dre Greenlaw down, but because they are trying to toe a fine line here, they're going to gather as much data as possible. We got water, which I needed. Thank you. Perfect. I was coughing a little bit earlier. You guys might not have heard me coughing, but that's why I muted it. I'm like, oh man, it's that time of the year, and I'm getting here toward the finish line. 49ers have played 60 games over the course of 3 seasons. I've covered 60 games over the course of 3 seasons coming into this year, plus all the preseason games and training camp. This one, maybe mercifully for a lot of people involved, including the 49ers, including Dre Greenlaw, including the guys who are really, really physically hurting. This one is going to come to a close a little bit sooner. And I think the 49ers are going to really benefit from the extra month and a half that they'll have this time around to physically recover, maybe even mentally recover. The coaching staff, I think, needs a little bit of a break for San Francisco. But we'll see what they decide on Dre Greenlaw. Trent Williams, they've decided he's done for the year. Banks Moore, done for the year. Spencer Burford undergoing that MRI. And then day-to-day injuries are Jair Brown with the ankle and D. Winters with the chest. All right, here as I'm laboring through the coughing and through the update on Christmas Eve, I think you should sign up for a San Francisco Standard membership. This is the article that I wrote from Miami. 49ers must do more to protect Brock Purdy. You can go ahead and head to the description. I'm going to send over the link to Mike. He's going to toss it in the description. Please do that, Mike. And you could sign up to the Standard there. We're going to have some fan meetups, a lot of good stuff. I also wrote my Grading the 49ers piece on Samuel, Kittle, and Brock Purdy delivering, but the supporting cast not delivering in Miami. But protecting the investment that's coming, and that's something that we're going to break down in more detail than anywhere else in the San Francisco Standard. The contract for Brock Purdy, protecting that investment is going to be what determines whether or not the 49ers can reach the pinnacle of success and finally reach that Super Bowl championship in the years moving forward. Because they absolutely have the quarterback who is good enough to do it, but they've got to make sure they sustain the team that's good enough to do it. 2024 threw them many curveballs, many wrenches, many terrible breaks. We all know that, the tragedy, the injury that has afflicted this team, but that doesn't mean that they can't keep on sailing forward and making the necessary improvements. And there are many of them that they need to make for 2025. So up on the San Francisco Standard, we're going to analyze that entire process. Go ahead and check that out. And I think that I can leave you guys with our experience from last night. We got to rewind that. And then there's nothing better than a goal on an empty net to end the game. Family out at the hockey game. That was fun. We'll talk to you soon. Merry Christmas to everybody. I've got to go recover, but everybody have fun. We'll see you soon.